Hello once again, everybody, and on behalf of the All-Star Football Officials Association Training Committee, I'd like to welcome you to our Week 8 video. This week's pretty simple. It's all about free kicks. My challenge to everyone this week is to really get in your rule book and understand everything there is to know about free kicks when it comes to the rules. Formation requirements, pop-up kicks, everything involved. Really challenge you because as we get further in the season, go along, games start getting more important, and teams get more and more gimmicky when it comes to free kicks. But you'll see more onside kicks. Games get a little tighter as they mean more. So that being said, I got 4 or 5 videos we'll go ahead and dive into. The last play, I'll go ahead and tell you there's a lot going on. It's obviously not in the state of Georgia, you'll see, but it serves as a good reminder of why if we've got something major going on, especially in a big time of the game, let's get together as a crew and make sure, even if we didn't see the play or is total opposite side of the field, we can come in as an official. If we really know the rules, we can come in as an official and offer up some guidance and throw something in there that'll, maybe change somebody's mind so that we don't put ourselves in a bad spot. Again, you might not have seen what happened, but judging by what somebody's telling you, you can say, hey, I hear what you're saying. That's truly what happened. Then we need to flag it because of whatever it is. So we can keep ourselves out of some rough spots. Again, if we just communicate and make sure we're getting things right. Let's go ahead and dive right in. All right, let's talk about the formation requirements for the kicking team. Remember, they're really just 2 basic ones. One tells us that everybody on the kicking team, between the ready for play and the time the ball's kicked, need to be between the 35 and the 40 in this case, or anyway, within 5 yards of whatever the free kick restraining line is. So in this case, everybody has to be within 35, with that one exception being the kicker. And when I say the kicker, it doesn't mean the guy who usually kicks the ball. It means the guy who actually kicks the ball during this play. So let's say they try some little trickery. This guy, he's back here, so he's the exception to the rule. He must kick the ball. So if they try a little trickery, he runs up here, stops, and then number 18 or whatever this guy is here runs up and kicks it, a little onside kick this way, they fouled. So just keep that in mind, that the player that's the exception to the rule back here must be the one who kicks the ball. Also, remember the other requirement. Well, I just said they need to be between 35 and the 40, obviously, but they have to have 4 members of the kicking team on each side of the kicker when the ball is kicked. So let's say they have 4 guys down here, and right before the ball's kicked, 2 guys kind of run behind the kicker, and at the moment the ball's kicked, there's only 3 on one side. That's a foul, and it becomes a foul the moment it's kicked and not necessarily the moment it happens. So they may start with 3 on this side, and this guy runs up, and all of a sudden he comes darting over here, so he makes the 4th guy, and as long as he's on this side of the kicker, by the time they kick the ball, we're in good shape. Now, that may be hard to see. Referees, umpires, everybody up front needs to kind of see if we've got 3 on that side and communicate that, hey, we have 3. So that way, if he doesn't move over, we have a foul at the kick, we can shut that down. But in this case, what we're going to watch for are players, once we blow the ready for play, kind of creeping back behind here, and we'll try and determine if we have a foul. So this case, we got the ready for play, obviously. Here they go. And as you can see, now we have a problem because we've got clearly this guy back behind here. All these are pretty good. Maybe a foot on the line, maybe not. But that guy's clearly back behind, and you see he kind of fell out of the screen, but we had at least 1 more guy, if not 2 more, go back behind the 35 over here. But either way, foot's on the line. We wanted to have to be completely in front by rule, but we're not too concerned about that. But this guy we are concerned about. He's potentially could give himself a big advantage if this guy slows down and he gets a running start. He gets an extra yard to have a full head of steam by the time the ball's kicked. So right now they have fouled. We need to, we should be shutting this down, and they do. They do a good job. Come in here, he sees this because it can be kind of tricky. Everything's happening right here. You got a guy coming to kick the ball. You want to make sure they're on sides, but also you have to notice that this guy kind of creep behind the line here. So either way, they do a good job. You see right there, he got the flag. He shut it down. That's a good job. We don't necessarily want to be tick-tacky with that. So if the ball's ready for play and the guy takes one step on the line or behind the line and kind of adjusts himself, we don't want to call that. Same thing, we wouldn't call a receiver trying to line up off sides just because the ball's ready for play. He's trying to get his position. We want to work with him there. So same thing, we want to work with him here. But shooting a yard or two behind there, once they start moving towards the ball, that's problematic, and that's going to be a foul. So good job here by this crew to get that foul right there. And again, it's just a 5-yard penalty. Back them up. Dead ball foul. 5-yard penalty will back them up, and they'll re-kick. All right, as we get further and further into the season and teams have had some time to work on things, what I've started to see a lot more of is some kind of gimmicky kickoff stuff. And some teams do it a lot, some teams don't do it at all. But the more time they have to work on it, the season moves along, more you'll kind of see some crazy stuff. So point being there, be ready for anything. Assume it's going to be an onside kick until it's not. So when you see, it doesn't matter what formation they come out in, bunched up like this, spread out, just assume it's going to be an onside kick until they kick it deep. Then you can take a breath and not have to worry about a big pile up here. So just always be ready, beanbag in hand, and always be ready for it. So with that being said, again, we've had the teams have time to work on things. They'll do some crazy stuff. They make, kicker. We saw one point where the kicker was standing right here and, hit it with his heel and stuff like that. So just be ready for anything. But right here, as a crew, it's pretty obvious we got 4 on each side. So referee, you probably got the best look at it. It's tough for an umpire to tell. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but if we get real bunched up and they're hugging one side or the other, we could potentially have a problem. But right here, we'll just let it kind of play out. See, they spread out here, pretty normal. They meet all the requirements. One guy back, all the rest of them right here. And just as a note, there's no requirement for them to be inside the numbers before the ready for play is blown. A lot of teams do that and spread out. Some will be inside and spread out. There's no requirement for that. That's for kind of a normal scrimmage play, not a free kick. So there's no foul. If they're spread out like this, we blow the ready for play. That's not a foul. So just know that. But as we move along here, I want to talk about pop-up kicks. So remember, teams are not allowed to kick the ball directly into the ground so that first bounce makes it appear as though it was kicked in the air. And that's basically it. It doesn't say it has to go X amount of feet higher, this, that, and the other. It's up to the discretion of the official. So as a general rule, we've always said if it goes above the team's head, so if it goes above the head of the kicker, we're going to call that a foul and we're going to shut it down. So with that in mind, we'll watch this. Maybe watched it a couple times, but they kind of come together. You can tell right there something's going to happen. We got a pretty big bounce. We get on it. So no illegal blocks, nothing really comes of it. But as I'm going to let it get and then slow motion, you can kind of tell he's got something going on. He's not approaching the ball real hard. But that first kick right there, it's hard to tell. I know it's hard to tell, but it is driven into the ground. So that very first bounce is really the only bounce we care about. If that very first bounce was right here, right here, and it's kind of hard to tell, do we let it go, do we not let it go? But that's, again, as a general rule, if it's above the kicker's head, which it looks like it is in this case, we want to shut it down. But again, we always have to be ready for that. And this ain't just the umpire's job or side judge, field judge, or referee, or whatever it is. If we see this, we've got a foul, and we need to kill it. So, umpire looking in, we hope he gets it, but either way, this would be illegal, this first bounce. So we shut it down before we have any kind of crazy stuff, low blocks or personal fouls or something going on that we've got to deal with. So quick as you can, shut a play like this down, back them up 5 yards, and re-kick. All right, this play right here is going to be similar to the last one. The kick itself is anyway. But you're going to notice a big difference of why this is not a foul. Now, he's going to kick it into the ground, but not directly off the tee into the ground. He's going to kick it out. It's going to hit about 4 or 5 yards down here. And yes, technically the first bounce is going to be kind of high, maybe above his head. But the point of the rule is so that we don't want the receiving team to be confused as to whether or not that ball hit the ground or is in the air. We don't want the receiving team or the officials themselves to have any confusion. So that's why they put the rule in there. But you'll see this kick, kick, bam, hits about 4 yards here, goes, bounces. This is perfectly legal. That's what we want. Now this is perfectly legal. You'll see that there's no confusion. That ball obviously was not kicked, up in the air. It may have taken a little bit of a big bounce out first, but if it hits 4 or 5 yards out here, it's pretty obvious that he didn't kick it in the air. So don't get confused on just because it's the first bounce. Again, that ball's got to be driven directly off the tee, straight into the ground for it to be a foul. Now, obviously, we've got this guy offsides, and again, if they're going to do all this and we think everything's an onside kick, we're going to treat this as a plain as an onside kick. But he's well past. Even if they were, kicking the ball deep, we got a foul here, and they get it. They shut it down. But this is a really good job here. But I just wanted to kind of show you something to clarify what that pop-up kick rule is in place for. All right, on this play right here, we're going to have an onside kick. It's going to come down here, and there are a couple things to look at, and we'll kind of talk through them as we go along. The kick itself, that's pretty good. It's obviously not pop-up. We go along. It kind of gets in a mix of their players. Never really makes it 10 yards and goes out of bounds. So a couple things we got to determine here. First of all, it's a good job here by the official holding that line. Don't get excited and start running back when we've got potential. We need to hold our ground here so we can determine whether or not this ball crosses the receiving team's restraining line. So good job there. But also as we back it up, potentially first touch in there, maybe. Looks like maybe it grazes that guy. Maybe it hits this guy on the heel. Either way, this officiating crew did not make the determination, or made the determination that it did not touch him. So they did not drop a beanbag for first touching. But had we determined that we had first touching and either hit his heel or hit him here, we need our field judge here. We'd obviously put a beanbag down for first touching. And then we're going to continue to officiate. So we would have a beanbag here at the 47 for first touching. But we also let it play out. And then we've got the ball out. We can call it in between, call it 49, call it 48. So we've got a free kick out of bounds. And even though it may have been touched by K, remember the rule for foul for free kick out of bounds, we have to have R touch the ball for it to not be a free kick out of bounds. So in this case, K touched it, but because K touched it, K is still guilty of putting that ball out of bounds. So we still have a foul. So crew does a good job. They come in here, they get a flag on the ground, and I think they put it at the 49 or something like that. So anyway, get a flag on the ground, do a good job. Now remember the options. We've talked about this before. Coach can back him up 5 yards and re-kick. We can take the ball 25 yards from the spot of the kick, which would be the 35. So he obviously doesn't want this. He can take the ball where it went out, or what he's most likely to do here is take the ball at the spot where it went out of bounds. And then remember, we have the option to tackle on an additional 5 yards. So we put that penalty on from the seceding spot. Very important. I'll talk about why seceding spot's important here. So that would be the 40, let's call it 49. So tackle on 5, boom, and it'd be 1st and 10 for White at the 44 here. And again, remember, if the kick goes out of bounds, they accept that penalty. Unless they re-kicking, they're going to have to put the ball on the hash mark it went out. So if we go out of bounds here, we're going to add the penalty plus 5. It'd be 44. 1st and 10 for White, the 44 from the right hash. They cannot White can't elect to have this ball in the middle of the field or left hash or anything. It's not a touchback. It has to go on the hash mark of the side it went out of bounds. Also, if we did have first touching, just remember too that we can't enforce the penalty from the spot of first touching. So they could have elected, had we said it was first touching, they could have elected to take the ball at the spot of first touching, or have the penalty if it was greater. So let's say we determined it got touched here, what do we say, back at the 47, and somehow that ball ricocheted and went out down here went out down here at the 45. It would be more advantageous at that point for the team to take it at the spot of the first touching and give them more yardage. And just remember, you cannot tack on those 5 yards from the spot of first touching. So we can't go back and say, all right, I want to take it at the spot of first touching plus tack on 5. That is not, the rules do not allow for that. So had it gone out to 45, they'd have to take 45 plus 5 to put it at the 50, or they see, first touching's up here, they'd probably elect to do that. But anyway, just some things to keep in mind. It's good for discussion pregame. Talk about those kind of things. And again, as we get further and further in the season, we're more and more likely to see this. Games get more important. Tighter ball games at the end. They got to win these things, so you're liable to see more and more onside kick. But again, just assume everything's going to be onside until it's not, and just study up on your rules and get into Chapter 6 of the rule book and really know those rules the best you can. Okay, this play here, and let me go ahead and give a disclaimer before y'all start seeing some mechanics of umpire here. This is not in Georgia. Obviously, you can just tell from the dress. This is not in Georgia. You can see, I don't know how, but we got a scoreboard here. So this is a minute 32. It's a 2-point game, minute 32 left in the fourth quarter. So obvious onside kick situation. Ignore their mechanics, but again, this is not Georgia. So again, if we got obvious onside kick, remember we'd have the umpire on the kick restraint line. We would move the head linesman and the line judge 5 yards from him, so they would be here on the 45. The side judge and the field judge would officiate it like they normally do here at the 50, and the referee would be back deep. So don't get confused on these mechanics. This is not how we work in Georgia. So if you have any, you can look in the mechanics manual if you're interested in that, about obvious onside kick, how we handle that. But this is a great, there's a lot going on. There's going to be an onside kick, and it's going to be a little pooch kick right over here on the sideline. It's going to bounce, and I'm going to have to play it a couple times. But there's a couple things I want to talk about, and you'll see as we go through. So that is not, go ahead and stop you. That was not a pop-up kick. This is a pooch kick. And no, they were not offsides. Go back and tell you that. I know you couldn't see them all. They weren't offsides, and it's not a pop-up kick. This is just a pooch kick. So it hits right there, inbounds. So it's a free ball. Bam. Backs up right there. What do we have? We had something going on. Ball looked like it was going to go out of bounds. Got tipped back in the field of play. And K, as it turns out, I'll be danged if they don't recover this thing, and they do. And this isn't huddle, so I'm going to try to back it up and get us a better, another look at it again.
So we're going to do something a little bit different here because
as we go through. So see right here, formation's legal. Everything's good here. Pooch kick going along. This player here thinks he's going to go out of bounds. It doesn't. It's right there on the line. So as it goes, I want you to pay attention to the action. I believe it's this guy coming over. He's going to come and bat that ball. You can see right there, it was going out of bounds. He batted it. Is that bat legal? No. You cannot bat a free kick. Nobody can bat a free kick grounded in the air, nothing. Nobody can bat it legally. So don't get confused with the scrimmage kick that allows the kicking team to bat a grounded scrimmage kick back towards their own goal line, or a kick in the air towards their own goal line if nobody's there, if no receiving team member is in the vicinity to try and catch it. So right now, no, you have an illegal bat. Now the question is, did he step out of bounds before he batted this? Was his foot on the ground when he batted it? Obviously, if his foot's touching the ground when he touches it, then you've got a free kick out of bounds. But just keep in mind that just because he touched out of bounds does not mean that the ball is necessarily considered out of bounds if he touches after that. So it's the same thing with the pass receiver. If the in this case the kicking team member steps on the line out of bounds, goes up in the air and bats it, that does not mean that the ball is considered out of bounds. The only way for that to happen is he has to be touching out of bounds when he touches that ball. So in this case, the ball is not considered out of bounds. So, all right, so where do we go from there? We've got a couple things. There's also a rule that states that A and K cannot go out of bounds and return. If they do, then you'd have illegal participation. Also, there's also a rule that states nobody can intentionally go out of bounds and then participate. So we've got some things to determine here. If we determine that this guy intentionally went out of bounds, jumped in the air, and batted that ball back, then he has illegally participated, because we're saying he knew he was out of bounds, he touched the ball, he obviously affected the play, so that's illegal participation. So potentially you've got two fouls here, and again, if you determine he was in bounds, and then that last step, then all you've got is illegal batting. But if you determine that he intentionally went out of bounds on his own, batted the ball, now you have illegal participation on him. But also, remember, that applies for all K players. So I want you to watch this guy as he comes down the field. He also clearly out of bounds on his own. He's not blocked out. He went out before he made contact with him, if he makes contact at all. So he went out of bounds on his own, and then comes back in bounds. So right now you've got a foul. He went out on his own and came back in. So right now you've got a foul for illegal participation, regardless of what he does. The other individual we talked about earlier that batted, he went out of bounds, but he stayed out of bounds. So the only way you could have illegal participation on him is if he affected the play by batting the ball, which is what he did. So here again, 5 went out on his own, and it may not have been big. It's a step or two, but it did give him an advantage because that guy couldn't block him to keep him from trying to recover the ball. So you've also got illegal participation on him as well. And of course, K recovers it. So right now you've got potential for 3 fouls. You've got 2 players for illegal participation, and you've got obviously the illegal bat. Now remember, the illegal bat is 10 yards. Does it make a difference? Well, people say no. Either way, as long as you get something, it'll make them re-kick. But it does, because remember, illegal batting is 10 yards now instead of 15. However, illegal participation would be 15 yards. And in this case, because K recovers it, there's not an option. We just have to go to the previous spot. They can elect to take any penalty they want, be it the 10-yard batting. They'll probably take one of the 15-yard illegal participations. So we'll go back to the previous spot, back them up 15, and re-kick. So there's a lot going on in this play. If you want to back it up and rewatch it, I'm sure there's shots of it on the there's some plays of it on the internet as well outside of this. But just remember, keep your head on the swivel. There's a lot going on. Guys, if you get something crazy like this, even if we don't get a flag at first, get together, talk about it. Hey, what did y'all have? Well, I had him. Yeah, I think he touched the ball. Did he bat it? Yes. All right, batting on a free kick, that's illegal. So even though that flag may not come out right when it happens, discuss, because this is obviously a big point of the game. If K gets this ball right here, I mean, they've got potential. If we don't flag it like we should, they've got potential to kick a game-winning field goal. Right there, they got the ball in their own territory, 1.5 minutes, so they got potential. So let's make sure we get together, big plays like this, get together, talk about it, and make sure we get it right. And again, just get the Rule 6 in your rule book, try it all out, talk about it pregame, And when big matchups happen like this, we can get things right. All right, that's it for this week. My challenge to you guys is, again, to get into Chapter 6 of the rule book, learn as much as you can about the rules for kicks and scrimmage kicks, formations, everything involved with that. Because y'all know as well as I do that if something unusual or something crazy is going to happen, it's probably going to happen during the kick. So, again, communicate as we always do before, during, and after the game, and above all, stay safe.